Good morning. And welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Society. We are grateful to gather on this beautiful morning, both in person and online, for a time of inspiration, reflection, and connection. Whether you join us today with joy in your hearts, weighted with burdens, or searching for meaningful connections, we are glad that you are here. I'm the Reverend Diana Smith, the minister of the Unitarian Universalist Society, and my pronouns are she and her. I'm a somewhat tall, white woman in my mid-40s with short, curly white and brown hair, wearing purple glasses, a purple dress, and a stole with the handprints of many of the children and youth in my life. Whenever I wear this stole, I'm reminded of how we create possibility for each other and weave our story of our future together across our differences and our geography. Our sanctuary this morning is filled with many people of many ages, and there are more of you out there online, I know. Through the window walls of our sanctuary, we can see that outdoors it is a beautiful, clear spring morning. As we gather, we give thanks for this land and all who cared for it over the centuries, particularly the Kickapoo, the Iowa, the Sauk and Meskwaki, and the Oceti-Sakowin nations. As people of many ages, genders, races, sexual orientations, classes, abilities, and health statuses, we know how important it is to come together as a radically welcoming spiritual community. As Unitarian Universalists, our faith expresses our core value of love through how we agree to be together and to support each other. We're guided by the shared principles and sources of our living religious tradition. And this morning, we celebrate and honor transitions, and we'll celebrate and explore how we support each other on our spiritual journeys. If you're newer to our congregation, we invite you to learn more about us after the service. If you're here in person, there are greeters in the atrium, and if you're online, there is a link in the YouTube show notes. Our call to worship this morning comes from the Reverend Leslie Takahashi, who writes, "All that we have ever loved and all that we have ever been stands with us on the brink of all that we aspire to create, a deeper peace, a larger love, a more embracing hope, a deeper joy in this life we all share." And so as we begin, let's join our voices in song with Touch the Earth, Reach the Sky. Alex Heatland will lead us.
Morning, everybody. It's nice to be here to sing with you today. If you're looking in your gray hymnal, this is number 301. If you're looking at the screens, the words are also on the screens. So you choose. Let's rise together in body and spirit as we sing Touch the Earth, Reach the Sky. Touch the earth, reach the sky, walk on shores while spirits fly, over the ocean, over the land, our faith, our quest to understand. Touch the earth, reach the sky, children ask the reason why. In our lives the answers show, our friend and love they learn to grow. Touch the earth, reach the sky, all are born and all shall die. Life's the time spent in between, to follow a star, to build a dream. Touch the earth, reach the sky, hug the laughter, feel the cry. May we see where we can give, for this is what it means to live. as we fly to touch the earth, to reach the sky. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Kara Beauchamp, a worship associate and member of UUS. I'm a white woman in my late 50s with white shoulder-length curly hair. My pronouns are she and her. As Unitarian Universalists, we light a flame within a chalice as a symbol of sanctuary and safety, to unite us in worship and to remind us of our ongoing search for the light of truth. Please join me in saying our chalice lighting words as Coraline lights our chalice. Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the wonder and mystery of this great gift. So let us now kindle the flame of our liberal religious heritage and renew our covenant of mutual love and care. Love is our doctrine, the quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, and to serve those in need. This we promise, this we covenant with life and one another. When we light our candle for justice and healing, we know our liberation is bound up with every other person's liberation. We light this candle that we may not be numbed or lost to injustice and trauma, but rather find strength, courage, and love together to continue engaging with the struggles for liberation, justice, and healing. We light this candle. As we light this candle, we remind ourselves that together we are creating resilience and hope. As I light this candle, let's hold a time of silence to listen to our hearts and bodies, or perhaps to lift up prayers.
On this special Sunday, in this season of new life and new beginnings, we pause to recognize our transitions. We give thanks for a place where our transitions make a difference, all the time. Just when we're getting used to the way things are, change comes along. Sometimes we're more ready for change. Maybe we're tired of the way things are. Sometimes we aren't ready for change. We like the way things are. But ready or not, change comes. So much so that sometimes it seems as if everything in life is about change. There are some moments of change that we gather to acknowledge, though, and so it is today. Nick?
Good morning. I'm so thankful to be here with you and to help us celebrate today. As part of today's service, we have the great joy to recognize and honor youth who are transitioning to young adulthood. As Emma Peterschmidt, Cameron Spay Miller, and Mira Wilmot DiCarlo come forward, please join Alex as he leads us in our bridging song, the hymn, the bridging hymn, with the verse, "Take My Hand." If I could have, yep.
Take my hand. Take my hand. Take my hand. Take my hand. Ooh, take my hand.
Young adults are on the cusp of so many changes in their lives, about to embark on new adventures. But our purpose today is not to say farewell, but to celebrate their transition from youth to young adulthood, to applaud their successes thus far, to honor their importance in our community, and to wish them happiness with what is to come. It is to make sure they know we are with them wherever they are, close or far. It has been an honor for our congregation to be here with you and Cameron and Mira, who couldn't join us today, and to watch you grow. We will cherish the memories of your many gifts, your vision, your energy, your questions, the music you have blessed our congregation with, and the laughter you have brought to Ari and Owl. In a moment, when we sing again, I would like to invite any of our youth present today, anyone ages 12 to 17, to join Mira here. Did I say Mira before? I might have made a mistake. This is Mira. This is Mira. Emma and Cameron couldn't join us today. Okay, I said it correctly. There we go. I'm worried. All right, so we will invite youth to come forward and join Mira up here. We are going to create a visual bridge. So our youth will join Mira on this side. And on the music side of our chancel, where one of our very own young adults is, those ages 18 to 35, 18 to 35, you qualify. It's a broad term. Any other young adults present who could help us create the other side of our bridge here between the piano and the end of the chancel, 18 to 35, if you could come forward again when we sing in a moment. Our young adults will welcome our bridgers with open arms into this new stage of life. So let us sing together as our youth and young adults come forward, "Fill My Heart."
Fill my heart. Fill my heart. Fill my heart. Fill my heart. Ooh, fill my heart.
Mira, as you move into your next chapter, we hope that you know that you are a blessing, that you are loved, that you are whole. We hope that you have learned that you are capable of incredible growth. And the same goes for you too, Cameron and Emma, when you're able to watch this. And we hope that you have learned that you are never alone. In the coming years, your lives will inevitably twist toward sorrow and detour back to joy. Whether it's to seek comfort or celebration, we will always be here to support you. May you continue to grow, learn, and dream your brightest dreams for the future. We send you with our warmest hopes and blessings. We are excited to see you emerge as an adult and look forward to all that lies ahead for you. May life bring enough challenge to fuel your dreams, enough affirmation to honor your gifts, and enough nurture to give your spirit peace. Along with our love and best wishes, this morning we have a gift for you. We hope that the book provides inspiration, solace, and support as you engage with becoming even more yourselves. And as one of these chalices, which our religious education team made themselves, sits on your home altar or your dresser or your bookshelf, we hope that it will regularly remind you of the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment of your home congregation. Do you want me to do this next part? Do you want to stay there? Okay, all right.
Well, just pretend I'm over there with the young adults. When we dedicate children, we give them roses which have had the thorns removed from them, as we seek to shelter them when they're small from the thorns of life. And yet, we know that we can never be completely safe from life. We know that life will challenge and hurt us. We know that the thorns will pierce your flesh from time to time, no matter what. So when you walk your path to Bridge, we will give you a rose just as it grew, thorns and all. With the gift of these roses, we affirm that you are ready to journey forth into the brambles of life, for you have what you need to overcome the obstacles that you will find, and you know that you can find healing when you are hurt. You know that there are people who will help you when you need it. You know that you are never alone. Go in peace, return with joy, knowing that wherever your goals and travels will take you, you will always have a home with us. To the families of our Bridgers, this morning we offer our thanks and gratitude for instilling your young people with our shared principles and values, and for sharing them with our community. In doing so, you have given us hope, continuity, and purpose. Thank you, and may you too know both joy and peace in the comings and goings of your young adults.
No congregation can survive for very long if it consists of only one set of people. A congregation is not just the children's religious education program, or the youth group, or a covenant group, or the book club, or even just the people who gather for worship services in person or online on a Sunday morning. We are a whole that is greater than the sum of its parts. As John Donne said so long ago, no person is an island, no person stands alone. Just as we have been enriched by the presence of these children and youth in our congregational family, so may we continue to embrace them as young adults and peers among us, even as we acknowledge their growing place in the larger world and bless them as they go forward in creating their own lives. And so now, Mira, as we sing the last verse of our bridging song, please cross the bridge, leaving the youth you are currently standing with and joining the young adults across the way where you will receive your gifts. So let's sing. Guide me on.
Guide me on. Guide me on, guide me on, guide me on, oh, guide me on, guide me on, guide me on, oh, guide me on.
And Emma and Cameron, we have your gifts for you and we'll get them to you. Mira, Emma, and Cameron, you have now bridged from youth into young adulthood. As one journey comes to an end, so another begins. Wherever your journeys may take you, never forget, we, this congregation are always here with you. Our love is always with you, invisible strings woven together, so strong and so tight that they can never be broken. Spiritual life is always transition. Beloved community is community in transition, made up of peoples whose lives are in transition. Always remember, our congregation is a place where you are loved and people are proud of you. Blessed be.
I'm coming. If you are at UUS in person today, there will be a basket in the fellowship hall where you can leave a personal message of congratulations to our Bridgers. If you're online, you can email me or mail in a note. It could be a message of hope, blessing for the journey, or words of congratulations. Later this week, we will compile all the messages and send them to the Bridgers so that they can take our love and well wishes on their journeys ahead. Please join me in congratulating our 2023 Bridgers. Thank you. This morning, in addition to celebrating our Bridgers, we want to extend our blessings for all children and youth who are at important thresholds in their journeys as they move from preschool to elementary school to junior high, and from junior high to high school. Even as we were able to move to a more predictable year, much is still changing. And I have seen firsthand all the hard work our children and youth have put into it to get to this milestone. Transitions are times that deserve to be recognized and that deserve to be celebrated. As you move forward, know it is an honor to watch each one of you grow and take on the challenges of the day. We cherish the many gifts you share with us, your vision, your energy, your questions. We applaud all the work you have put in to get to this point, and we are excited to see what lies ahead. I invite everyone to speak aloud or to put the names in the comments, the names of friends and loved ones, children, relatives, who are also at an important milestone in their lives so that they can be added to our blessing today. So go ahead, if you know anyone in one of those transitions, entering kindergarten, going into junior high or high school, say those names aloud, whether you're here or at home. If you are a child or a youth who's here today in one of those transitions, in one of those important milestones, we invite you to rise or come forward. You can just come to there, to be in front of Reverend Diana, wherever you're comfortable. For our children and youth making those school transitions, wow. All those just named, and those who remain unnamed, but in our hearts, we offer you this blessing. Yeah.
Okay, you can stay up here for just a moment if you want. Yeah. So, dearest ones, as you move from one known place into a new one, as you begin a new part of your journey, may you feel the warmth of your family, your community, and this congregation holding you with love and support. When the new places and people feel scary, overwhelming, and exciting, and you're not sure what to do, who to talk to, where to sit, may you remember who you are and that we love and rejoice in you, unique, beautiful you. May you have fun, learn tremendously, grow in ways you never imagined. May you play and dance, paint and sing, find new friends and new joys. May you always be held by love. May you know joy and laughter. May you know a comforting presence in sorrow and grief. May the world be yours to explore and discover. May you seek to be compassionate towards all that is. May you know and delight in mystery. And may that mystery travel with and bless you all the days of your life. Blessed be. Amen. Thank you. And now let's congratulate them. Okay. And now finally, we also want to recognize the amazing work that our religious education team, teachers, and nursery volunteers do every week. Together with Nick, they create and sustain a vibrant religious education program that nurtures the hearts, minds, and spirits of our children and youth. And they have fun and learn and grow while they're at it.
I want to recognize that commitments aren't always easy. Being creative, being upbeat can be difficult some days. And signing up to work with one age group and being asked to serve in a different capacity day of can be hard. Whether you've prepared and taught 40 hours of OWL classes this year, supported another person while they led an RE class on 1 or 2 Sundays, or joined in regular Zoom planning meetings. We see the work that you do for our community, and we want to thank you. So there are going to be names and groups of volunteers on our screen, and I'm asking that those volunteers with us today come forward when your name is called and on the screen. There are some gifts that we have for you today. Yep. So our youth volunteers this year, Avery Van Abema, Gray Lindley, and Hex Cheney. If you could come forward, and you'll be receiving an envelope with your name on it. Avery is actually in our nursery today working, so I've already handed her little gift. Our Whole Lives 7th to 9th grade facilitators: Allison Oliver, Dan Gall, John Lanahan, and Tony Miller. If you can please come forward, those of you who are here with us today, you get a different envelope. Thank you for that. Thank you for your applause for them. Can we also applaud our youth volunteers who have also... Our youth group advisors and volunteers will be coming forward next to pick out a chalice. These advisors and volunteers maybe have spent time with youth during Sunday's RE time. They've also stayed awake so that youth could have overnights here at UUS. So they've done jobs that aren't sought after necessarily. Those late nights are hard. So if our youth group advisors and volunteers could come forward if you're here today: Ann Shones, Becky Connolly, Brenda Lindley, Dave Tokahisa, Scott Wittenkeller, and Quanda Hood. Please come forward and be thanked. We couldn't do Sunday RE. Oh, there comes Dave! I thought I saw you today. We couldn't do Sunday religious education without our Sunday RE leaders. They are our next group that we're inviting forward to choose a chalice created by the RE team: Abby Patterson, Jan Weaver, Jody Lindley, Joel Gilbertson, Kara Beauchamp, Monique DiCarlo, Peg Buska, and Val Bowman. Please come forward and choose a chalice. It's so hard to make a decision on these chalices. I don't know if you got a chance to see pictures or see them up close, but each one of them is unique. So, last but definitely not least, I am inviting our RE team members forward. These people have helped me so much in my first year here, and I don't know what I would have done without them. Please come forward. You know who you are, but I'm going to say your names. Anna Rohde, Ian Cawley, Jennifer Noyce, Marcia Cheney, and Meredith Gall. Thank you to each and every one of you. It's been a wonderful year, and our RE program wouldn't be the same without you all.
Someone recently said to me that the world right now is in an in-between place. It is in a place of change. Many of the ways that the world has worked aren't working so well anymore, and that's not all bad. Many of those ways that we thought the world worked, many of those old systems weren't healthy for us after all. They've choked out the ability of many with less privilege to survive and thrive. And they've even restricted the abilities of those of us with more privilege to truly flourish. And they've damaged our beautiful earth deeply. And yet, we experience many people, particularly those with power, trying with all their might to resist the changes that are happening in the world, to hold on to power. And we often experience ourselves resisting, longing, hoping to recreate what was, which is normal. It is deeply wired into us to want what was, what is known, even if it wasn't always good for us, even if it didn't let us connect with so many people and species that we share this planet with, even if it inhibited our flourishing. In this space of change, we don't know what comes next, what will be created, or what we will help create, what will emerge from the fear and anger and uncertainty that we feel about all that is happening around us. What will happen when the love that lives deep within all of us, that calls us to care and connect and create change, interacts with this changing world? Or what will happen to us as we allow the passion that we feel for a world where everyone can survive and thrive emerges, and what it will help create? What will happen when our calls mingle together? What fires of change will burn? We are in a place that is in between, of emergence, that holds so much possibility, with all the excitement and fear of that, and with the tiredness that living in the liminal space in emergence begets. What do we do in this place? What spark do we nurture, and how? It can be, it almost always is, confusing. And so in this in-between place, I'd like to share a poem with you. A poem that's helped me find it grounding, find space for clarity in the in-between places. While I share it, I invite you to notice what images come to you. what words stick with you? This is Fire by Judy Brown. What makes a fire burn is space between the logs, a breathing space. Too much of a good thing, too many logs packed in too tight, can douse the flames almost as surely as a pail of water would. So building fires requires attention to the spaces in between as much as to the wood. When we are able to build open spaces in the same way we have learned to pile on the logs, then we can come to see how it is fuel, or the absence of fuel, together that make fire possible. We only need to lay a log lightly from time to time. A fire grows simply because the space is there, with openings in which the flame that knows just how it wants to burn can find its way. We need to make the space and keep the space that allows us to thrive, that allows us to breathe. On the wall above in my office, right above my desk, hangs a bunch of pieces of paper on a string. Those of you who've been in my office may recognize them. I forgot to grab them on my way in here, but that's okay. They are prayer cards that people made for me during my ordination. The top one, the one that I keep showing, says, "Don't forget to breathe, Reverend Diana." My dear friend and colleague, the Reverend Aisha Ansano, who was a ministerial intern alongside me at First Church Boston, made that card for me. Now, when she made it, she didn't just mean the shallow breaths that we tend to take when we're anxious or disconnected, the ones that just come into the top of our lungs and don't go any deeper. She meant the deep breaths that we take down into our bellies, the ones that fill up all of our lungs, that root us down into something deeper, that connect us out into something wider. The deep breaths that nourish us, that help us flourish and burn brightly with all our vibrancy. Aisha wrote that card for me because as my co-intern, we had learned a lot about each other. And she knew that I often gave, and really still often give, myself too little room to breathe. I pack in the logs too tightly with too many things that need doing, too many concerns and needs, as do many of us. It is so tempting to measure ourselves by what we do or have, to hold on to too much while trying to create something new, to respond to the urgency of the world by packing the logs too tightly, by trying to keep everything, which eventually smothers the flame. We need space to breathe, to be creative, to explore the creativity that is within this time of change, to create community, to co-create what is coming, what responds to our values and pulls on our hearts and our deepest yearnings for a world of love and liberation together. We need space to breathe and to keep breathing. And the irony, of course, is that in this time when we're emerging from the pandemic, so many of us have forgotten how to, or have lost the ability to breathe. Or we found our ways to do it diminished. Perhaps by all the demands that have crept into our lives, perhaps by anger and frustration and burnout, Perhaps our ability to breathe freely and deeply is being diminished by feeling squeezed by the hateful actions of those in government who are trying to say that we shouldn't take up space, that we shouldn't exist. Perhaps by our own bodies. Now, one of the ways that COVID has had a lasting impact on me is that my lung capacity is diminished. Air gets trapped in my lungs and I can't fully exhale it, diminishing my lung capacity gradually. Now, I have tools I'm using to work on this continuing physical manifestation of the pandemic, and they're helping. Yet my lungs, like many people's, may never be the same. And one reasonable response to that, one reasonable and healthy response to the changes of the pandemic, to the world that surrounds us, and how it is pushing and pressing on us and our loved ones, reducing our ability to breathe, decreasing our ability to be in relationship with one another, degrading norms of communication and collaboration. One reasonable response to all of that is anger. Another is sadness. And while that's true, it's also true that I have found ways that while my lungs have been changed and while the world we live in has changed, I can still breathe deeply in ways that root me down and connect me out. I can ride my bike and work in my garden. I can and have found ways to retrain myself with a lot of support to do what I need to do to flourish. And on the way, I've learned new things about myself, about rest, about curiosity, about change. This is something we are all doing in this in-between place. I've learned new ways, and we've learned new ways of being. We've learned even more about the importance of cultivating community, of feeling and expressing gratitude, of encouraging, of being in curiosity, of empathy, of resting, of giving space. We are still learning. And so it's all of us, not just our bridgers, not just our children and youth making major transitions, but all of us. Move in the world as we seek to work with each other to make the world that we all need, the world where all of us can make it. May we make space for curiosity about what the changes we are experiencing are bringing us and what we can create with them. May we make space, and may we keep space to breathe for ourselves and each other in this amazing in-between place. So may it be. Amen. Blessed, blessed be.
How we give, what we do with our lives and our time and our resources is a reflection of our values. In response to the abundance we are blessed with, every week this congregation donates generously to organizations in the community whose work aligns with our values and principles. Our community partner agency this month is the Free Lunch Program. An open door, a full plate, no questions asked. The Free Lunch Program of Iowa City operates 6 days a week with volunteer teams preparing and serving nutritious meals to anyone in our community who is hungry. In the sanctuary, the ushers will collect the offering, or you can follow the instructions on the screen for how to give online. All cash contributions go directly to our community partner agency. In addition to assisting our community partner, you may contribute towards your pledge to our society or contribute to the congregation to provide additional support for our operating expenses. You may also contribute by check using the memo line to designate the purpose. The offering is a sign of commitment to this free congregation, which is almost completely supported by the generosity of those who join us. As we give and receive the offering, may we be transformed by our giving, and may the world be transformed by our gifts.
We've cleared off the table, the leftovers saved, washed the dishes and put them away. I've told you a story, tucked you in tight at the end of your knockabout day, as the moon sets its sail to carry you to sleep over the midnight sea. I will sing you a song no one sang to me. May it keep you good company. Or you can be anybody you want to be. You can love whomever you will. You can travel any country where your heart leads, and know that I will love you still. You can live by yourself, you can gather friends around, you can choose one special one, and the only measure of your words and your deeds will be the love you leave behind when you're gone. There are girls who grow up strong and bold, there are boys quiet and kind. Some race on ahead, some follow behind, some go in their own way and time. Some women love women, and some men love men. Some raise children, some never do. You can dream all the day, never reaching the end of everything possible for you. Don't be rattled by names, by taunts, by games, but seek out spirits true. If you give your friends the best part of yourself, they'll give the same back to you. Or you can be anybody you want to be. You can love whomever you will. You can travel any country where your heart leads, and know that I will love you still. You can live by yourself, you can gather friends around, you can choose one special one, and the only measure of your words and your deeds will be the love you leave behind when you're gone. Yes, the love you leave behind when you're gone.
Nurturing gratitude and how we understand and express interdependence is part of how we live into our Unitarian Universalist faith. May what we have shared today help us more fully affirm our interconnection and live into love and justice. Immediately after the service, we will have time for all to join in conversation and community. If you are online, a link to our Zoom coffee hour rooms is available in the description below the video in YouTube. If you're here in person, we gather in Fellowship Hall and outside for conversation. At about 11:15 this morning, our congregational meeting will begin. If you are a member who plans to attend on Zoom, please check your email for a Zoom link, which was included with the congregational meeting packet. If you're here in person, current UUS members will need to check in outside of the sanctuary and receive your pink voting card for the congregational meeting. And now, to close our service today, we will sing hymn number 1020, Woyaya.
I invite you to rise in body and spirit and sing together. It is, if you're looking at the teal hymnal, number 1020, but if you're looking at the screen, it's there too. We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Woyaya, 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 woyaya. We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Woyaya, 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 woyaya. One more time. Woyaya, woyaya.
Please join me in the words for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. All of these we carry in our hearts and in our minds until we are together again.
As you move into the world today, whether it is to the congregational meeting or into the world outside this building, may you go embracing this in-between place that we are in. May you go making space and keeping space, that your body may be a site of and a vehicle for liberation for all of us. Go in peace, love, and justice, living love ever more fully and fiercely into this world. Amen. And blessed, blessed be.
Are there words to it? Ah, amazing! Go forth and do good things. Build a world of your imagining. Spread love everywhere you go. Be kind to everyone you know. Go forth, go forth, go forth and do good things.
Jeff, I can't hear you. Jeff, I can't hear you. It is now time for the congregational meeting. I couldn't hear your mic. Please check in and get a pink card. Oh. If anyone is in the sanctuary without a pink card, you need to step outside and get your pink card for voting.
Hello? Yes, there we are. We have the mic. Wonderful. Welcome. Good morning. My name is Rochelle Honey Arsment. I'm your president of the Board of Trustees, and I'm calling this congregational meeting to order. So, I know we have folks working on our validation of a quorum, and so it's good to be with you for this May 21st, 2023 meeting. Nope, that was it. Do we want to do check? Why don't we do that?
Okay, let's light our chalice with some words from the Reverend Sherry Woodbury, who writes, "Here we are in our circle again, a circle of vision and reflection, a forum for deciding and empowering. Here we are at the base of another bridge, another space spanning the shores of today and tomorrow, beckoning us to cross the chasm one day at a time. Here we are, gathered again at the cusp of the future, at the boundary that holds community together. Here we are in a circle of love and trust, brought to this moment by a series of choices and promises, by hope and gratitude, by our own shadows faced and befriended. With a servant's heart, a leader's listening, and with a parent's love, truer than all our inner trembling, let us model the health we seek for all and lean into community. Somewhere out there, all we dream is possible. Somewhere in here, we are sowing the seeds." And so, let us begin.
Oh, hey, Michael. We can move slides. Okay. I'm Christine Etler, the Secretary of the Board of Trustees, and we have met a quorum of 76 people, and I think that's about 30%. Thank you.
Okay, so we will be moving into our action items and discussions. So the first item on our list is the approval of the December 19th, 2022 meeting minutes. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes? So, I saw a motion over here. Who did I see hands? Okay, can we make sure, Christine, can you get the motions? Okay, awesome. Can we get a second? Got Sue back there too. Okay. Do we have any discussions, any corrections? Yes, there we go. Oh, Mike? Yes, Miriam. Oh, Sue. Miriam was the first and Sue was the second.
Right there. Auto.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. If we advance the slide, I have an amendment to the minutes. Michael, you can just click to the next slide. Yes. So we had a couple of words left out and just a typo. So you can see in the red what I've added. I changed the word projects to projected, and when Mike was speaking in December, he wanted me to make sure that I said that we will cover a budget deficit of approximately $100,000 using bank and endowment funds. This will be on Election Buddy, so you can read the change to the amendments. So I guess I would like a motion. I made the motion to approve the change to the amendments, so I need a second. Thank you.
Oh, can I have my, oh, but you took, that's my agenda. Is there any further discussion around that? We won't be voting here, we will be voting on Election Buddy. That link will be sent out later this afternoon. So, okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our second item. So this is the amendments to the bylaws. So can we get a motion to accept the amendments to the bylaws? Susan Salterberg and Mary Catherine has a second. I do believe we have an amendment that was being brought forth around that, but by Russ, yes. Mike, so you can be heard.
Yeah, I would like to propose an amendment to the 7th proposed amendment, Article, I'm going by memory, Article 7, number 1A, there it is. Add the following as the next to the last sentence, and it concerns the agenda. The president shall ensure that a clear agenda is set for each board meeting. The bylaws didn't say, or the revised bylaws didn't say anything about an agenda, and I think that should be in the bylaws.
Okay. One thing to note with these bylaws is that there will be policy changes that we will be having governance working on with the board as well to come up with policy changes that will go along with the bylaw changes if these get passed. But we needed to pass these first before we worked on the policies. So, are there any other amendments, discussions that people have around the bylaws? Who was that? I didn't. Okay. Dave. Okay.
I think when we make an amendment to the main motion, we should vote on it here. Did we do that? I don't think we did that with the amendment to the minutes.
Okay.
And then we should vote on this, Russ's amendment as well. So, but I think we can keep discussing, right? For a bit? But let's move back to the minutes after this.
Okay. So we have a motion from Dave to accept the amendment to the bylaws. Do we have a second? We have Susan Salterberg as a second. Okay. Any discussions around that motion? I'm sorry, we just want to make sure that people can hear.
Okay, Anna Rohde. I'm just asking, were you saying that adding the requirement in the bylaw that there be an agenda set by the president, that's a policy item? Is that what you were trying to clarify? Or that's separate?
That was separate.
Okay.
Yep, that there will be we had talked about, is this a policy thing or is this a bylaw piece? And in conversations prior to this. And so there will be policy changes. If people are recognizing that the bylaw changes are going to create issues with the policies, we recognize that and we know that, and that those will be worked on. So, is there any other discussion around that? Russ?
I think we're a little confused here. First of all, this is an amendment to the proposed amendment, and that needs a second, as I understand it.
It did get a second. It got a second by Susan.
Okay, but I want people to understand that we're voting on this amendment to the amendment.
Yes, thank you. So are there any discussions on the amendment to the amendment? Okay, so hearing none, so we vote by card on this. All who approve the amendment to the amendment, raise your cards. Okay. All those who oppose, same sign. Well, okay. We have 3 opposed, 4 opposed. Yep.
How are people online going to be able to vote on the amendment to the amendment?
I'll say what the question was. Someone asked how the people online will vote, and we're going to have them raise their hand. So we need to take this a little slow.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, gotcha. Thank you. Were there any abstentions on that as well? Because I'll get the opposed again. That might make it easier for counting. All those opposed to the amendment, raise your pink cards. 1. Okay. We appreciate your patience in all of this. Trying to do this in a hybrid manner has taken a lot of creativity and planning and trying to make this work as best as it can. But we do recognize that it is a clunky process.
I am taking minutes, and I missed if anyone abstained.
I did not see any pink cards raised when I asked for abstained.
Still waiting to count Zoom votes.
Okay, so while there's continuing to count, is there any further discussion on the whole amendment as well, with the addition of this amendment to the amendment? No? Okay.
Altberg, and I just wanted to say I appreciate the board's efficient work on this because bylaws can be a long drawn-out process, but sometimes UUs can get things done fast. So,
and we appreciate the feedback and input from LDC specifically and other leaders too around those bylaws as well. Yep, we've got a hand back there with Tony Miller.
Tony Miller, just a question. It looks like the slate is prepared on the assumption that the amendment to the bylaws will pass. What would the slate change, or how would we adapt that if the amendment didn't carry?
If the amendment doesn't pass, we will have to, yes, come back and have another meeting and vote on a slate. Yes.
I actually have, if I have a text of a provisional bylaw. So I just wanted everybody to know that I did write a text that would cover the next 2 years. And it was just something I'm holding on to in my back pocket if something doesn't happen, if this doesn't work out.
And one thing to note with this slate is that we would have had to, we are altering from the bylaws regardless with this particular slate, right? Which happens, and it is something that occurs in congregations all the time. It's so we are having to adjust and make changes. But if we have to come back and do that again, we're open to doing so if we need to. So, okay. Do we have our count in?
This is Christine, the secretary. I keep not introducing myself, excuse me. For the motion to amend the main motion, that passes.
Okay, great. So we won't be voting on the motion to amend the bylaws here. That will be in our later. So then I guess we need to return to the minutes.
Before that, I did not get good notes on the main motion. I think it was Dave Gallagher and Sue Salzberger.
Nope, it was Miriam.
Oh, okay. No, on this one.
Oh, on this one, it was David Tokahis.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, multiple Daves.
Okay, now I would move back to the minutes, thanks.
Okay, so we also now need to move back to the minutes from last meeting. So there was an amendment to change that. So do we have, we did the motion on that. We now just need any further discussion and then to vote on that. So discussing the word changes in the minutes. Any? Okay. So all who vote to approve, raise your pink cards. Okay. Looks like it's going to pass. And then all who are opposed, same sign. Okay. There's no one opposed. Are there any abstentions? Okay. Right. It will, I think with the numbers that we have here, that's going to pass. But we want to make sure that they get their votes in. The next part actually doesn't take a vote, so I'm going to start with that while they are working on the votes for this last part. So that we are going to move on to our recognition of our outgoing committee members. So if you are here and able, please, it did pass, wonderful. So that motion passed as well. If you are here, when I say your name, please rise as you are able. For those who are our departing committee members, Alan Swanson, past president. Julia Ottelholm, trustee. Hold off your clapping until we get everyone. That way everyone gets their clapping. Thank you. Trustee to the board. Susan Salterberg from Leadership Development Committee. Sue Otto from Leadership Development Committee, and Jamie Sharp, Endowment Committee. We can, go ahead. These individuals have given us, tireless, many hours of their time and energy, and so we greatly appreciate all that you have done, and we wish you well on your next endeavors within our congregation. Thank you so much for all you have done. Okay, Dave.
It's a beautiful day out, isn't it? We'd rather be outside, but we're here and we're going to enjoy this meeting. I'm Dave Gallagher, Leadership Development Chairperson. I drew the short straw. With me is Ron Pyle. He's chair of the nomination subcommittee, nomination lead. Also, we have Phil Beck. I don't know if he's here, and as you recently heard, Sue Otto and Susan Salterberg. We had an interesting search process this last year, which was augmented by a couple of resignations, so we had to fill some positions in a hurry. And you folks like to do service. we don't like to sit in meetings a lot. But, you know, you ask somebody to go pull weeds or work in the food bank, yeah, we'll do that. But some folks, you know, got to thinking, you know, we'd ask them, would you like to serve on the board for the next 3 years? And I don't know whether it was COVID or something, but they got to thinking that kind of, okay, 3 years. Okay, 3 years, that's 36 months and 2 meetings a month, that's 72 meetings. And wow. And some people really had second thoughts about that, which is a good thing. And we had some people tell us that because of their family and service commitments and their career, that maybe next year would be a better time. And we do have some people that said that we're very hopeful that next year we'll, you know, be able to serve and help us. We would like to thank all the nominees that did say yes for this year. And now I'd like to turn this over to Ron to nominate the individuals.
All right, thank you, Dave. I'm Ron Pyle. I'm the, I guess I'm the nominations lead on the LDC. That's actually a thing, believe it or not. I was ably assisted by Sue Otto. So we did come up with a slate of candidates. We had to get a little creative on some of these things, and we worked closely with the board, and I sure appreciate all the work the board put in on this, these bylaw changes that hopefully will make this process easier going forward. So without further ado, I'm not going to read all the bios. I think you have those in your packet that was emailed, and so I'm not going to take time to read all those. But starting with the position of president, we have nominated Jeff Wahlberg for a 2-year replacement term, and that's, as you know, this is all predicated on the bylaws passing. If they don't, the amendments passing. If they don't, then we have to revisit a lot of this. So I would like to nominate Jeff Wahlberg as president for a 2-year term. Do we have a second? Okay. And do we have any discussion or any nominations from the floor? Hearing none, I will move on. For trustee for a 2-year term, Monique DiCarlo. I'd like to nominate Monique DiCarlo for a 2-year term as trustee. Do we have a second for that? And any discussion or nominations from the floor? Okay, we can move on to treasurer. Here's where we had to get a little creative, but we're nominating Mike Pavlich for a 1-year term as treasurer. He is the past treasurer, and he has agreed to extend for 1 year. There's a whole long story behind that, which I won't get into, but I will nominate Mike Pavlich for a 1-year extension to his term as treasurer. And do I have a second for that? Okay, Jerry? Or?
This is Christine Etler, the secretary. I wanted to point out 2 things. The extension is allowed under the bylaws, and it requires a 2/3 vote for him to be extended. And that was it, actually. Oh, I know. I would like to announce who seconded. So you are the one who nominated, and Jerry Wetlaufer seconded.
Okay, good. Thank you. So is there any discussion or any nominations from the floor? We have a
Chris Rohde, and I'd just like to know why we're doing an extension.
Well, okay, so our search for treasurer was long and arduous, let's say. And we had talked to Michael Honey Arsemet, who agreed to be treasurer, except It turns out his partner is on the board, and though that's not specifically outlawed in the bylaws, it was sort of felt by all concerned that the optics wouldn't be good to have two partners serving on the board at the same time. So the agreement is, and this is not really, which we're really only voting for Mike Pavlich to be treasurer for one more year, but Michael Honey Arcement has agreed to assist Mike and take over some of the mundane duties and sort of learn the position, with the informal understanding that he'll be nominated next year. Well, that'll be for a 2-year, assuming these bylaw changes get passed. So, any other questions or any nominations from the floor? Okay, hearing none, we can move on to Leadership Development Committee. And we'll start with Peg Boska. So I will nominate Peg Boska as Leadership Development Committee. And do I have a second for that? Carolyn Johnson has seconded. And are there any questions or nominations from the floor? Okay, we can move on. The second position, that's another 3-year term. I should have mentioned that. That's for Peg too. The other 3-year term on leadership development is Jody Lindley. I will nominate Jody for a 3-year term on Leadership Development Committee. And Sue Otto seconds. Any discussion or nominations from the floor? All right, we can move on to Endowment Committee. Dave Martin has agreed to serve in that position. So I will nominate Dave for Endowment Committee for a 5-year term. Do I have a second for that? Pete Brokaw has seconded. Any questions or discussion or nominations from the floor? All right, I see none, so we can move on to a 1-year replacement term, and I nominate Dan Cummins for the 1-year replacement term for the board. Dan has already been serving for, I don't know, a few months. He was appointed by the board, which is the process when there's a resignation. The board appoints someone till the next meeting, so now we're at the next meeting, so now we have to vote for Dan Cummins for 1 year. It's the last year of the term of the person who resigned the position. So I will nominate Dan Cummins for the 1-year replacement term on the Endowment Committee, and do I have a second for that? Okay. I'm sorry, Liz Noyes seconded that. And I think that does it. Oh, I guess we need to do questions or discussions or nominations from the floor. Seeing none, I think that completes the nominations. So, as has been mentioned, the voting will be done online, and those should be up shortly. Thank you very much, and I really want to thank the board for all the hard work they put into these bylaw changes. It just, seeing the behind-the-scenes work that was put in, it's inspiring to see how much work was put in a short amount of time for all these bylaw changes, and it's been impressive and heartening. So thank you very much to the board.
Okay, so I'm back. So here's my report. So connecting with ourselves, each other, and the wider community. The vision of ministry that your board and staff have been pursuing over the last 2 years has been that, connecting with ourselves, with each other, and with the wider community. In reviewing how that vision of ministry has taken shape over the last year, it has become clear to me that we have not only been connecting, but reconnecting as well. We have reconnected with old friends and connected with new. We have reconnected with our own purpose and connected with new ways of seeing the world. We have reconnected with people in our wider community and seen how much our world has changed over the course of the last 3 years and how big of an impact the pandemic has had on the well-being of ourselves, our community, and the entire world. Other words that come to mind when thinking of the last year are resilience, resistance, reorganization, recovery, and rejoicing. It has been a powerful year with great losses in our community and great joys and celebrations. The way this congregation came together during a difficult time, rallied around one another, and overcame major hurdles has been a beautiful thing to behold and something I am proud to have been a part of. Our congregation and community has shown resilience in our continued growth during the pandemic, when many other congregations saw major losses to membership and participation. While the pandemic has taken its toll on all of us, we have continued to show up for one another and shown how we value this community. We have been resilient in the face of political turmoil, refusing to be numbed to the injustices occurring around us, and holding space for each other's battered feelings while the world is so tumultuous. We have faced the effects of climate chaos and continued to champion strategies that protect and preserve our beautiful world. The world economy has taken a battering this year, with companies and billionaires making enormous profits while everyday citizens struggle to pay their bills and put food on the table. Our continued commitment to giving to organizations in our community that serve those in need has become even more important to those organizations and the people that they serve. Plus, while our congregation has been impacted by rising costs, we have remained generous in giving and supporting this congregation and its values. With all that is happening in our world, in our country, in our state, and our community, it could be easy to turn away, to become numb, or to just shut off, especially after the exhaustion of living in chronic stress and fear from the pandemic. Our congregation has committed to not doing that and has shown resistance to the devastating political actions taking place in our state and beyond. Last year, we endorsed the 8th principle, and this year we have continued having conversations and taking actions to resist racism, marginalization, and oppression of those most vulnerable among us. We have supported and befriended multiple refugees, worked with local school districts and other interfaith organizations doing this challenging but necessary and rewarding work. We have members who are climate champions, reminding us that there are things we can do to save our planet and resist complacency regarding the environment. Our first annual Earth Festival was a wonderful event that showcased our green building, the environmental work going on in our congregation and our wider community, and provided us with an opportunity to have fun, learn, and eat good food from some of our local immigrant and refugee populations. Another way that we are resisting complacency and celebrating the lives of marginalized individuals is by creating our safe learning space. This was a response to the strategic targeting of trans, queer, and LGBTQ+ youth in our schools and in our state. A successful Faithify campaign brought in more than the ask for $15,000 to create a learning space for marginalized students to complete their online schooling in a place that celebrates their existence and their human rights and dignity. People around the country have shown their appreciation for the actions that we have taken to create this space. To prepare for the opening of this space, your board and other members of the congregation and our community have attended a trans inclusion training that has better helped us be a welcoming congregation to our trans, non-binary, queer members, friends, and youth. There is always more for us to learn and ways for us to grow. The resistance road is a long one. We are not here for a sprint, but for the marathon. Remembering that is important when we have setbacks like we have experienced in our state this year. Our perseverance will lead to success and to lives saved. Another task that your board and staff have taken on this year has been reorganization. A few years ago, our congregation moved into shared governance structure. Through the hard work of previous board members and leaders in this congregation, we have made enormous growth towards that goal. And part of the structure of shared governance is continued assessment of how that governance is working and what needs to be changed to make it work even better. The board and its committees, as well as the Leadership Development Committee, have been evaluating how the changes in our world are affecting how our congregation operates as well. Members have attended trainings and researched the changing map of Unitarian Universalist congregations and how we best make adjustments to fit into the lives of congregants in today's world. Our lives are changing, and we must continue to evaluate what changes we need to make for our congregation to thrive in our current circumstances. We have examined board structure and have developed the bylaw changes that were in your packet and that we are voting on today. We have also experienced changes in our staffing, the organization of our staffing. We have brought on new staff that have updated our beautiful website. If anyone hasn't been to our website, it is beautiful and updated and much easier to maneuver around on as well. We also have new staff that have developed and implemented programming and ideas that have led to the resurgence of our religious education program and other programming. There are more growth opportunities underway, such as our summer camp programs and extending our whole lives curriculum. It has been so refreshing to see young people back in our building. We also have staff members moving on to new opportunities that will be wonderful for them, and we will miss them. We also wish them the best in their new endeavors. This change will require us to be creative in how we move into the future. Our staff have worked hard to develop a staffing plan that will lead us into a new era for our congregation. As the world begins to open back up to in-person activities and recover from the isolation and stress of the pandemic, so too has our congregation. We have opened up our building and welcomed members, friends, and visitors back into community with one another. How refreshing it has been to see people whom we have not seen in years, and to have so many visitors coming to services and other programming in our building. This is just the beginning of that recovery. We would not be experiencing this recovery without our staff and volunteers in the congregation. There are so many people who contribute to the health of our congregation in so many ways. Volunteers on the board committees, leadership development, endowment, stewardship, religious education, the auction, buildings and grounds, our justice teams, membership associates, pastoral care, worship associates, hospitality teams, and so many others. Thank you for all of that you do. This year, we've also seen a need for more volunteers to step up to assist in recovery. In September, when Reverend Diana had to take medical leave for her own recovery from long COVID, we, as a congregation, showed what we are made of. The love and care which was shown to Reverend Diana was powerful and reassuring. We supported one another through that time, and for that I am deeply appreciative. The compassion, courage, and commitment shown by so many during that challenging time are indicative of who we are and what we can be for one another. It made me proud to be part of this congregation. Another thing for us to be proud of is that we are making gains towards balancing our budget and being fiscally responsible. This process has been a difficult one and a valuable one. Attempting to meet this goal has been doubly hard during the pandemic and the ensuing financial difficulties in our country. We have made great gains and hope that the programs and new ideas that have been developed will further lead us where we intend to go. So let us rejoice together and celebrate the progress we have made. In-person services and auction, along with opportunities for people to participate online, music concerts, and the return of the choir singing in our services, a successful first annual Earth Festival, deeply moving services and actions taken to lift up those who have been marginalized, resurgence of religious education participation, connecting with ourselves, each other, and with the wider community. In beloved community and gratitude.
Well, what a tremendously busy year this has been. When the annual report is released, I believe this coming week, you'll be able to read much more about it and see many more pictures than the ones I am going to show you. But this will be a little bit of a year in review for us. As I begin, I wanted to highlight that many congregations, the vast majority, in fact, have been struggling with identity, mission, engagement, and finances as they've been emerging from the pandemic. UUS is in a very healthy place, both in and of ourselves, and particularly when we look at the overall context of this country and of organized religion here. People, both those who are already members and those who are just beginning or have not yet discovered UUS, need us. They need this liberal religious space for people of all ages, where we connect and engage in spiritual and religious meaning making, support and connect with each other, where our work engages with the larger world. We've been experiencing adaptation and change in a changing world, with new needs, both in terms of theology and worship style or content, and in ways of connecting. In the midst of all this change, it's not surprising that we have experienced high levels of anxiety and stress in this congregation. What might be more surprising is that we have retained so much health, vibrancy, and connection. That is extraordinary. I want you to notice that. When I talk to my colleagues around the country, I am so impressed by how well we are doing here, how much health, vibrancy, and connection we have kept by centering love, justice, compassion, community, respect, curiosity, and hope, and by keeping our mission and vision, the next slide, clearly in our forefront amid changing needs of our community and actions by our state government that are attacking many of the most vulnerable among us. We've been, as Rochelle pointed out, connecting with ourselves, each other, and the wider community through the efforts of all involved in our shared ministry. One of the big themes that we've encountered this year has been continuing to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. We've been developing and responding to our approaches to responding to the pandemic over the year. One major impact that COVID had this year, of course, was my medical leave this fall in order to heal from long COVID. I am deeply grateful to the volunteers, staff, and our affiliated community minister, the Reverend Lois Cole, who took on new and expanded roles to ensure that worship services, pastoral care, congregational life, stewardship, community engagement, and administration were able to continue with only minor gaps while I was on medical leave. In addition, with the next slide, we have been working on finding our new congregational patterns and ways of gathering. And we have done that. We have been finding new ways of gathering. In addition, next slide, staff and volunteers have worked to develop and try out new types of programming while operating under our Safer Gathering plan. Some of these have worked better than others, but trying out many things has been an important part of understanding what people need and have the capacity to engage with now. Next slide. We have also worked to reinvigorate our religious education for children and youth under the direction of our new Director of Lifespan Religious Education, Nick Kaplan, this past year. This has all helped us connect with ourselves and each other. In our next slide, we've continued to provide vibrant Sunday worship services in a multi-platform context. This includes bringing back robust monthly all-ages worship services, the choir coming back, adding new worship associates, and experimenting with our service formats in our new multi-platform context. It's been interesting to notice that as our in-person attendance at our worship services continues to increase, our YouTube recordings are still watched between 80 to 150 times a week after the Sunday service. And each of those views represents an average of 1.5 people. This means that our online attendance remains higher than our in-person attendance and collectively is exceeding our pre-pandemic attendance. We'll be continuing to discern how to respond to this trend in the coming months. It's important to pay attention to. Our many types of mind and spirit programming, which I mentioned earlier and which Rochelle has talked about, have supported our congregational connections. We've also continued to have a robust pastoral care team that provides pastoral care in person and online. Pastoral care associates receive monthly training so that they can respond to many types of pastoral care issues. And I provide pastoral care and limited pastoral counseling for more intensive or emergent needs. Our congregation has experienced many losses this year. There are faces that are not with us this year that we dearly miss, with 7 memorial services for members and friends. We have also welcomed new members, some of whom I see here today. In our next slide, volunteer teams have also led building new elements on our grounds, which are leading to new programming opportunities. This includes being able to offer summer camps for the first time this year. And next slide, these have also included things like a larger haunted trails and trunk or treat event this fall, the recent Earth Festival in early May, and these events are helping us engage with the wider community. This year, we've been asking ourselves, how do we live more deeply into our mission and vision and where they're calling us to now? At our congregational meeting a year ago, UUS voted to endorse the 8th principle, which calls for building diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. This has helped guide our congregation this year. I began serving as co-president of Johnson County Interfaith Coalition a year ago, which has helped us become more engaged with racial justice work with other congregations. UUS hosted JKIC's Faith in Action event in September, and members and I have been part of listening sessions with Black community members on gun violence and healthcare, and this summer we will on education. We've also opened a little free pantry here, began supporting 2 new refugee families, as well as many others, and continued our social, racial, and environmental justice work. This is powerful work we are doing in our community. Next slide. US's new Radical Welcome team helped us have a presence at North Liberty and Iowa City's LGBTQ plus Pride celebrations and helped offer trans inclusion in congregations classes, which almost 50 UUS members and friends have now taken. Almost 50 of you. That's a huge percentage. Having so many leaders and other members participate in trans inclusion classes has helped congregational leaders work with me to respond to new laws that attack trans children and youth. This includes deciding to open the learning space in August 2023, as Rochelle has discussed. This year, I've also continued to provide administrative leadership for UUS, including serving as head of staff. We've experienced 2 major core staff transitions in 2022 to 23, as well as hiring support staff. Nick Kaplan began as our Director of Lifespan Religious Education in June 2022. Yes, it's been almost a year, but not quite. And Peggy Garrigus will be leaving as our Director of Congregational and Community Engagement in June 2023. And there will be an announcement coming out about that in the next couple days about a goodbye. So pay attention to your email. With our DCCE's departure, I worked with staff and lay leaders to develop a new staffing structure to support our current and expected immediate future needs while working to balance our budget. Working with staff and lay leaders to find ways to balance the budget through existing and new income sources and by reducing expenses has been one of my other major focuses this year. You'll hear more about that soon from Jerry and how the board and I have been working together on that. As I wrap up my remarks, I want to come back to the fact that this congregation is remarkable. The amount that we've done together during the pandemic and in the midst of the difficult environment is astounding. We keep coming together to nurture our spiritual development and meaning making, to support and connect with each other, and to engage with the wider community in justice making. I am so grateful to leaders, to staff, to the many members and friends who've nurtured our growing shared ministry, the ways our congregation has committed to listening to and supporting each other over the decades, and how that is playing out today. We have grown in powerful ways this past year, and we are putting in place systems that will allow us to grow in the mission, vision, and community in the future. As we look towards next year, may we lean ever more fully into creating beloved community and living into love. Thank you.
My name is Jerry Wetlaufer. It's a pleasure to see all of you here. I will try to keep it brief in honor of what I regard as one of the most beautiful days of the year, when the trees are just blooming and have that vibrant green color. I'm crazy about it. But that's not why I'm here. I'm here to say a few things about the financial situation, specifically about the proposal that we extend the balanced budget initiative. In this, I will essentially summarize the points that I've made in my statement that's in your packet, and with the exception of a handful of specific numbers where there may continue to be some differences, I speak on behalf of the board. Mike Pavlich is our valued treasurer, and I'm not sure he agrees with every last number that I cite, but I believe that they're correct. Our current situation is that in the endowment in the bank, is that we've got $350,000 in the bank and $1.2 million in our endowment. And of that $1.2 million in our endowment, $712,000 is in the general endowments corpus, which is essentially unreachable by us. And only under extraordinary circumstances would we ever touch that. The balance is in interest, roughly $300,000 more than $300,000 in earnings in excess of the corpus. That's our current situation financially. And thanks to the extraordinary efforts of Reverend Diana and our remarkable staff and our countless volunteers, this community is weathering what I can only describe as a great storm caused by the pandemic. A little bit of history, but I'll keep it as brief as I can, and it's summarized in my statement. We began in January 2020 with a balanced budget of $662,000. 3 months later, in March, came the pandemic, and our world was turned upside down for all of us, for our jobs, for our families, and for this community. We were forced into social isolation, to close the building for what proved to be 30 long months, and to undertake the disruptions and costs of learning how to hold all of our services and meetings and just being with one another in a new and not altogether satisfactory online world. We began in January 2020 with a projected balanced budget. The pandemic intervened, and we ended up with a deficit of $150,000, and things were at that stage getting worse. They were at their bleakest, I think, in 2021, when even after cutting the operating budget by $70,000, we still faced a projected budget of between $200,000 and $250,000. Happily, we were able to come in with an actual deficit that was about half that. When we next met in December of 2021, we approved the 22 budget with a projected deficit of $107,000, and with a view to dealing with the difficulties that had been laid bare by the pandemic, we also committed ourselves, the congregation committed itself to a plan for increasing revenues and balancing the budget by 2024. Since that time, our projected deficit has been going down steadily, and our actual deficits have always been lower than what had been projected. This year, the congregation approved a budget projecting $100,000 in deficit, That deficit has already been reduced by half, and next year we expect to do still better. The pandemic has taken a great toll in our lives and in the life of this congregation and in our finances. That said, wherever I look, I see things that are headed in the right direction. Through 30 months in which the building was closed and we could only be with one another remotely, we have remained together and engaged. Now that we are weathering that storm and the building has reopened for Sunday services and other activities, our energy and vibrancy seem as strong as it has ever been. We are also substantially enhancing our capacity to manage our finances. Through the gifts of the shares of the solar system. That system now belongs to the congregation and will result in $12,000 to $15,000 of savings each year. We have a new system of policy-based shared governance that has radically improved the organization and management of the staff, while also streamlining and improving the operations of the board as well as our numerous committees and teams. That new governance system bodes well for the future. We also have a series of programming initiatives, new programming initiatives, that are only now getting underway and that are calculated to increase the our visibility in the community, to bring new people into the building, and are likely to bring increases both in revenues and in memberships, both of which we need. Among those initiatives is a reorganization and recommitment to expanding rentals in the building. Also, we have summer camps, the nature camp and the theater camp, which I think will be extraordinarily successful, which I think will be extraordinarily appealing to people both inside the congregation and outside. And additionally, we're undertaking this Learning Space initiative with the financial support of a Faithify campaign that has significantly exceeded its $15,000 goal. So we have programming initiatives that are pointed, we have financial initiatives pointed in the right direction, organizational initiatives pointed in the right direction, programming initiatives pointed in the right direction, and we have staffing changes occasioned in part by Peggy Garrigus' regrettable departure. Those staffing changes include additional responsibilities for some of our existing staff, and it also includes 3 additional part-time positions. But on the whole, it will result in significantly lower costs, and it will support our important new programs and help increase both revenues and ultimately membership. We face continuing difficulties. Even this year, we will at best end up with a $50,000 deficit. Now, let me say a word about what's meant by deficit. Deficit does not mean that we're spending money that we don't have. The deficit in the operating budget means that we are covering that deficit with money from our bank accounts, and in the last 2 years, with specific permission, limited to those 2 years, from the endowment fund. We are not spending money that we don't have. But we continue to have a deficit, $50,000 this year. We hope to have it lower than that next year. We hope to have it balanced for next year, but that's not by any means certain. Similarly, I have to say that the stewardship campaign, while it has been successful in raising over $404,000, thanks in part to $14,000 in matching funds raised through contributions over and above normal stewardship giving. We have done that, but we have also fallen short of our goal of $410,000. And while the amount of average pledges is up, the amount of the average pledge is up, this year we've had only 187 pledge units, and that's down from 207 last year, and down below 200 for the first time since 2015. The stewardship is a continuing problem, and it is the primary source of our funds. And the number of giving units is decidedly down. If we want to continue the current level of programming and continue developing the initiatives such as our summer camps and the learning space, we're going to have to do significantly better in the future than we have done this year. Notwithstanding the fact that I regard this year's campaign as fundamentally successful and is reflecting some extraordinary efforts on behalf of the Stewardship Committee. We made great progress and things are pointed in the right direction. I feel confident about where we are and where we're headed, but only if we are prepared to show flexibility with respect to the balanced budget deadline, which is now set for 2024. If we are able to extend that deadline by 2 years, we will give ourselves the flexibility that we need to bring on these new programs that are just beginning, and we will avoid the necessity of hiring part-time staff and then at the end of the year having to lay them off or truncate other programming. I'm confident that these initiatives will all bear fruit, but I think it would be a mistake to require them to do so in the first few months of their coming online. That said, I remain hopeful that we'll be able to balance the budget for 2024, but I believe that it is also necessary that we defer the balanced budget deadline until 2026. And with that, I will turn it over to Jeff for further remarks on this subject.
All right, we're getting close to the end here, and I promise I will try to keep this brief. I think a lot of what Jerry said, I'm going to follow up a little bit on what Jerry and Reverend Diana said, really. So mostly I just want to give just a slightly broader context for where we're at. And I was on a Zoom workshop with about 8 other mid-sized congregations from our region this week, and it was a very interesting experience, and mostly what I left with was a continued sense of optimism and pride in what we're doing. I think we really are emerging from COVID in a lot better shape than some other congregations are. There are some congregations really struggling out there, and I think a lot of the creativity that we're showing on programming and dealing with the deficit, and we've already got this wonderful building as a starting point, we really are in good shape. So I'm not going to go through a list of all our strengths because I think that's been covered. But we do, I think, as Jerry has especially focused on, we do have some ongoing concerns. One thing that is difficult for us that's not difficult for all congregations is that we have a large mortgage. And that's just a fact of life for us at this point. We're also, because of some of the staff reorganizations, we're really looking at our minister and staff taking on a lot of additional responsibilities with fairly minimal part-time support and some unclarity about who we're even going to be able to hire for those positions yet. So there's a lot in flux. As has been stated, we also have a lot of new revenue sources that aren't really predictable yet. They're not fully developed. And really what I want to focus on most is kind of what Jerry was talking about at the end, which is our pledging has not only kind of been struggling on our own terms, but it's actually an area where there are some congregations similar to us that are doing much better. And I want to just give a little inkling of what that looks like. And the two congregations in particular that I've kind of followed up on, I've been having additional conversations after this Zoom call with a couple of other congregations that I think are very similar to us. And also I've been in conversation with Des Moines, who's a little bigger than us and really is one of the congregations struggling at this point, I would say. The congregation I want to kind of focus on most right now is in Champaign-Urbana, and most of you probably know it's a university town. It's really similar in a lot of ways to Iowa City, Coralville. It's similar size, similar demographics, similar cost of living, and their church size is almost identical to ours. They have 10 fewer pledge units by some measure, but I think effectively just almost identical. And they're going through a lot of the same stuff we are. They're cutting programs by 25% across the board. They are in the process of hiring a new minister, and so they cut, I think, all or most of an administrative role to help pay for that additional expense. But I think they're feeling very good about the fact that they've entered into sort of budget tightening in a very intentional, collaborative way, where they've brought everyone to the table, and they're feeling like they're in a pretty good situation, welcoming a new minister and moving forward. And the one thing I see them doing particularly well, though, is they just have extraordinarily strong pledging. So if we could show the slide here. So basically this is, sorry, I can't move too far away here. UUS on the left and Urbana on the right. And the numbers I'm showing for us on the left are really kind of what will look like at the end of the year after some of the staff savings have been realized and some of the new revenue sources. So it's not our current budget, but kind of where we'll likely end the year. Urbana, on the other hand, is right now going through a budget cycle. They're on a 6-month, they're 6 months off from where we are. So these are where they intend to be. So you can see effectively they, at a, basically the same size church, have $100,000 more in pledging currently per year, which is allowing them to have a total budget that's about $85,000 more than we do. And because of our mortgage, they have no mortgage, and so not only do they have $85,000 more to spend, it's really more like $145,000 because they don't have that burden. Let's see, anything else here? So one of the ways that they're using that extra expense is they in the last couple of years hired a full-time congregational life person attempting to grow. I'll show you one more slide and I'll say some more about where they're at. So if you just kind of look at the total amount of pledging divided by the number of pledge units, their average pledge is 32% higher than ours. So I don't know all the reasons for that. It's possible that they have an older membership and have more significant people donating way at the high end. I don't know enough about all the details, but it's a pretty significant difference. Sure. So our average pledge is about $2,200, which is different than the median. Our median pledge is, I think, $1,200 or something like that. Their average pledge is $2,900, so about $700 difference. So that each, on average, a member in their church is contributing an extra $700 a year. Does that make sense? Per pledge unit. Let's see. So, so my initial speculation is, well, maybe they have an older congregation, maybe they aren't growing the way we are, maybe in 5 years they will see declines in stewardship like we have, and not all is as rosy as it seems. That's all possible. But I do know that they, in this calendar year, have already welcomed 24 new members, and they're very excited about their RE program. So I don't really get the sense that it's that they're struggling with growth or new members or young people or any of that stuff. Okay, so I'm going to skip a little bit of this, I think. And simply say, so getting back to some of the numbers we're looking at, so we entered this year with $100,000 in deficit spending authority, essentially. The congregation gave the board that authority. And by the end of the year, it'll essentially be cut in half. So really, what we're effectively asking for is to take that authority that's already been granted and push it out 2 more years. So we might be looking at a potential deficit for 2024, a budgeted deficit, mind you, of, who knows, somewhere between 0 and 25,000, preferably at the lower end of that. And I'm going to skip most of that, I think. So that, I think as we look at how we're going to address the remaining deficit, especially if we were trying to do it in the next 6 months, really the stewardship campaign is a huge unknown variable in this. So I'm not trying to suggest that our stewardship campaign should attempt to increase our pledging by 32% this year. It would be amazing if that happened, but I don't expect our stewardship folks are wanting to do that kind of a campaign. But I think that one way to think about it is that if we simply stay level with where we were in our last pledge, we're looking at probably needing to cut about $35,000 to $40,000 out of our expenses for 2024, if we really intended to do a balanced budget. That would be, I think, pretty challenging. I mean, it's especially challenging because our amount of discretionary budget is really about that amount, probably $40,000 to $50,000. So Urbana actually went through this exercise and really nailed down their amount of discretionary funds, and it was 7% of their whole budget. And I think that's similar with us too. Less than 10% of our budget is discretionary, unless you consider staff discretionary, and we've kind of already gone through the exercise of scaling down our staff. So steady is difficult for us to balance this year. If we had a 5% increase, that would be another $20,000 to work with, okay? And so that would effectively cut the amount we need to reduce in half, and that makes the challenge a little bit more doable. If we came in 5% higher on our pledge this year, it might be conceivable we could show you a balanced budget in December. If we have a 5% decline, which there's some concern that's the direction we're headed in, it would be nigh on impossible, I think, to balance the budget in 2024 without just serious kind of unhealthy sorts of cuts that are what some congregations are looking at right now. So I think maybe the last thing I would say about this is that, I think this is kind of what Jerry was trying to say, is that the balancing the budget is a planning tool that is a helpful part of the process, and it's definitely where we want to get to. But ultimately where we want to get to is having more money at the end of the year than we started with, which is not always lined up with where we started with the budget. And even more than that, it's not even so much ending the year in the right place, it's ongoingly having cash flow where revenue is greater than expenses, right? So it's building a model, it's building the right staffing and pledge levels and all that sort of stuff that kind of lines up so that 5-10 years from now we're stable and things continue to evolve where we don't have to keep going through these kinds of major sort of reorganizations and shifts. So that's all I wanted to say, and I think what I need to do next is bring this to the floor. Okay. Okay.
And if you want to say that.
Yeah. So the motion is to rescind the current balanced budget mandate and replace it with the following resolution: that UUS will adopt a balanced budget for 2026 or sooner. So I'm motioning, and is there a second? Amy Fretz, I see. And then, do you want to moderate discussion if there is such? And I will stand next to you.
Yes. Discussion on this. Okay. So, hearing none, we will vote on that later. So, just getting your computer. Okay, thank you. Please bring concerns if you have them to us. So, yep.
Hello, Christine Etler, Secretary again. I just wanted to point one thing out that might not have been mentioned, I think, is that a change to the bylaws requires a 2/3 vote. So I don't know that we mentioned that. Just wanted you to know. When we tally the election buddy results, we'll be looking for that.
Okay, so after this meeting closes in just a couple minutes, you get to go vote. For the next couple, well, you don't get to go vote right away. In a couple hours, you get to go vote, and you have until Friday at 5 p.m. to vote, but vote sooner. Sooner is better than later, before you forget, right? Or life gets in the way. So vote. Mary Catherine, you have a question. Okay, so Mary Catherine's question is, are we going to get an email online and then you will vote from that? And the answer is yes. So you will get an email. So in a few hours, if you have not gotten your email, go to your spam folder and check for it there, because this is what happens. Also check your promotions folder, because sometimes our things go to promotions. So check those different folders, and if you still haven't gotten one by tomorrow morning, contact our office or contact Christine, and we'll figure out what is going on so that you can vote. So now it is time to close our meeting. Our closing words come from Jezebel Anat, who writes, "Let us come into a calm, clear place where we can relinquish our clutter and relax from busyness into being. Let us settle into that calm, clear place where the earth supports our bodies and the community lifts our spirits, where we can breathe in peace and center ourselves in love. Let us welcome our calm, clear place where our hearts can open and our thoughts can expand beyond the cobwebs of convention into the creative flow of infinity." I hope you go find that calm, clear place out in this beautiful world, and then you vote. Thank you.
Yep, that's what I'm asking for. Motion to adjourn. Do we have a unanimous ask for that? There we go. Okay, wonderful. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, all of you.